Podcast where we talk about everything from movies to comics to video games and everything in between. On today's episode, it's very fitting because as of time of recording, it is the launch day for the PlayStation 5. Very big day for many gamers, very sad day for many gamers. But it is also the release, at least for the PS5, the release of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It was released on November 10th for Xbox Series X and last-gen consoles, but it was released today for the PS5. I thought, and I mentioned this to Clint, why not discuss some Assassin's Creed games, some that maybe we enjoyed more so than others. Unfortunately, the majority of the people that play Assassin's Creed is me between the two of us, unless you talk to our music engineer Chance, who plays the games religiously. I think he's literally played at least all of them that were on next-gen console. I think he also played some of the original ones, but I'm not quite sure. If you're unfamiliar with the Assassin's Creed games, you play as an assassin from the Assassin Brotherhood in the past. You were brought into the past from the present by something called the Animus. The Animus is a device used by Abstergo Industries, who are modern-day Templars, who are the enemies of the Assassins. And throughout each Assassin's Creed game, not only do you play through different historical eras, but you also see the progression of the Assassins as well as the Templars. There have been a lot of Assassin's Creed games. The first of which, Assassin's Creed, dropped in 2007. It wasn't necessarily like game breaking. And when I say game breaking, not like crap. It did have bugs, but every game has bugs. But it wasn't anything really reinventing the game industry. Assassin's Creed was originally going to be a spin-off series for the Prince of Persia games. It's just going to be called Prince of Persia Assassin. But they decided not to tie it in with the Prince of Persia games, and Ubisoft decided to create it as its own game entirely. The first game follows Altair in the past, but in the present, and up until Assassin's Creed 3, it also follows Desmond Miles, a modern-day assassin, who has ties to every single bloodline that is discussed in the main games. The main series of games include Assassin's Creed 2, which follows the assassin Ezio and is the start of the Ezio collection, Ezio trilogy. It would be later known as the Ezio collection when they re-released it for next-gen gaming. But after that, it would go into Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Revelations, both following Ezio as he becomes the Grand Master of the Assassins. It also follows Desmond as he goes deeper and deeper into assassin history. And then it leads to Assassin's Creed 3 and its DLC, Assassin's Creed Liberation. Assassin's Creed 3 followed Connor Kenway. In Assassin's Creed 4, it followed Edward Kenway, the grandfather to Connor. Its DLC was Assassin's Creed Freedom Cry. And after that, the last game for last-gen consoles for the Assassin's Creed series was Assassin's Creed Rogue, which followed a assassin who was very tied up in what the Order was doing and disagreed with it, and like the title, went rogue and decided to join the Templars, and actually aided in destroying the North American Brotherhood of Assassins, and killed the father of the next game's protagonist. I forget his name, but the next game in the series would be Assassin's Creed Unity, based in France. I'm not too aware if it had any DLCs. It was the first Assassin's Creed that really had like a DLC, or not DLC, but like a multiplayer expansion where you and 3 other friends could play as assassins. And after that, it was Assassin's Creed Syndicate with its 2 DLCs. The major one was a Jack the Ripper DLC, and another DLC that was surrounded around the last Maharaja. And after that, you would see fatigue of Assassin's Creed games that led into basically a rebirth of the games the following year in 2017 with the release of Assassin's Creed Origins, which made it more like an RPG that followed Bayek, and an early assassin in ancient Egypt. Then the year after, in 2018, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which had nothing to do with assassins, was released. And that gets us to today with the release of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. In today's episode, I just wanted to, like I said, just talk about some of games we're familiar with, and some of the games that I've played, because Clinton hasn't really played as much, if really any. I feel like you've played some, haven't you?
Like are you just referring to like straight main series, or are you talking about like
in general,
that break off? I mean, I did a lot of Black Flag and Assassin's Creed 3 at one point, and then I did a lot of Unity when it first came out, but then I kind of lost interest in it. Besides that, I touched on Brotherhood, I touched on Assassin's Creed 2. I've watched Odyssey and stuff like that, but never really got like able to play it. But
I feel like I've played some of Brotherhood as well, but not much. I own the Ezio collection and haven't touched it yet.
I definitely say that the only games that I can really say that I played were Black Flag, Assassin's Creed 3,
and Unity.
But like I said, I've messed around with stuff on Assassin's Creed 2 and like Brotherhood. Like those are the ones that I can definitely remember like doing things on, but just the 3 really. And it's kind of sad because that's kind of after that it kind of just took a dip. Right?
Somewhat.
Syndicate was after, and then kind of took a dip because they also they took was it a year hiatus or 2-year hiatus after the movie?
Well, it wasn't, or was it following the movie?
It was before the movie.
It was before the movie. The last game that came out before they took a break was Syndicate, and that was 2015. They didn't do any Assassin's Creed main series game in 2016 until 2017 when Origins came out. 2016 is when the movie came out.
Right.
So they didn't really do anything tying in with that. But then again, even its sequel got canceled, whatever. It didn't do as good in the box office as hoped. But, there's been a lot of games, a lot of fatigue for some people in the last 10 years. Well, really 13 years now. I've always enjoyed it, even though back in 2013, watching the trailers for Assassin's Creed Black Flag, where it literally says, didn't get Assassin's Creed 3? Don't worry. Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag is out now. That made me mad. Because you just had a game come out, and then you're already saying, didn't get that one? Don't worry about it. We got a new one for you, and it's even better.
Which it was. Don't get me wrong.
Well, yeah, but playing 3, and that's actually the first game that we'll mention on this. I'm going to go in order of the games that I've played, but it's like, to me, these are some of my favorite Assassin's Creed games before I dive more into them as we go on, especially as I play Valhalla. But Assassin's Creed 3, like I said earlier, it was followed Connor Kenway, who is half Native American, half English. His father, Hatham Kenway, is the son of Edward Kenway, and he's like the head of the Templar Order in the new colonies. This game was set during the American Revolutionary War, which is really cool because, if you know anything about the Assassin's Creed games, when you go back into the past, they recreate what it might have looked like or what it did look like during that time period, which is really cool. The attention to detail by Ubisoft and their like the differing teams in Montreal, and I think they have one in Australia, but I know it's Quebec. I think it's Montreal and Quebec, Canada, that they have two major studios, and then I think Ubisoft in America, their studio there. But they do a really good job at trying to pay attention to detail in these games, especially in the later games. After Assassin's Creed 4, when they really started hitting a lot of the more modern times for the games, they used next-gen technology very well in trying to recreate all this stuff, especially in Unity when they recreated the French Revolution and Paris and France in the French Revolution. It was really well done. Everybody, you can say what you want about the games, about their gameplay and stuff, but the graphics and the environments are so beautiful in these games, especially when they recreate an entire city or an entire country, like Egypt. They basically created the entire country of Egypt and in Origins, and made it so similar to what it would have been back then. But Assassin's Creed 3 gets a lot of hate. In the past, maybe well warranted. It started that's when fatigue started setting in with Assassin's Creed games. There wasn't a lot of changes to the formula, the basic, sneak around, hack and slash kind of stuff. It was released on October 30th, 2012. The game is set in 2012 and is based around the apocalypse in 2012, when everybody thought that the Mayan calendar predicted the end of the world, which didn't happen. But in the game, it was a reality because of the lore that's in the game. I'm not going to go into too much of it because that's an episode in itself, talking about the lore of Assassin's Creed. But basically, you have Desmond, who was in every single game from the original Assassin's Creed through the Ezio trilogy up until now in Assassin's Creed 3, where, spoiler if you don't know it already, but it has been out for 8 years. Literally has came out 8 years ago, this past October 30th. Desmond sacrifices himself, depending on which option you choose. You can sacrifice yourself for the world, or you can do something else. I don't really know what the other option is. Either way, you die. But he does, ultimately sacrifice himself for the world, trying to save it as an assassin. It gets really jumbled up when it goes in there. I mean, I unfortunately never got to finish Assassin's Creed 3. Playing it on both the PS3 and then getting the remastered version on the PS4. I was never able to finish it, unfortunately. I am looking to finish it.
I mean, I think we got the general idea of it when we got pretty much to the last mission and then kind of had to give up.
Did.
So it's one of those things.
It's not that I gave up. It's I stopped playing during the summer, and then went to school, and then never picked it up again because that was on, like I said, the PS3. We didn't pick up the last gen console again for a while.
I mean, I think it's just one of those things of you've played almost the entire game and then you already know what happens after that. So it's like you pretty much completed it.
I mean, I knew more or less what happened after it.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it. I like Assassin's Creed 3, especially being a history buff and wanting to be a history major. More specifically, an American history major. Assassin's Creed 3 is, voice crack is a big part of that because you see all these different historical figures and historical sites back during the Revolution that is really important. There was also another DLC that I just remembered. Uh, I don't remember the name of it, but and when I said Liberation was a DLC, technically it wasn't. Liberation was a PS Vita game, but in the Assassin's Creed 3 remaster for the PS4, they did add it as like a DLC. Freedom Cry for Assassin's Creed 4 was a DLC, but Liberation wasn't. The actual DLC for Assassin's Creed 3 was having to do with a vision seen by George Washington with a piece of Eden. I think it was an apple of Eden with Connor uh, towards the end of the game, sort of. And he sees himself as the king of the United States, as a tyrant. I think it's called the Tyrant King or something. Uh, so the DLC basically goes off of that, and it's more mystical with Connor having these spiritual animal powers, like of a bird and a bear and stuff like that. And so you basically get to kill the founding fathers in it, which is a different play on history, which Assassin's Creed is known for in some of their DLCs. But Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is the first game that I really finished. Really the only game that I've finished for an Assassin's Creed in the series. And that's recently. The game came out in 2013. The last time I touched Assassin's Creed 4, after I had to restart the PlayStation 4 and start the campaign over, was 2016. I finished it almost a year to the day that I last left it off. This past, I believe it was August. Might have been November, but I think it was August. And I completed it. It was the first time I completed the main story. I still had a lot left to. I still have a lot left to do in the open world that I haven't got to, just because I started picking up Syndicate again. But it is fun. Assassin's Creed 4 is the largest map in an Assassin's Creed game, because you go explore pretty much the entire Caribbean. Without explicitly saying the countries, because either I'm not quite sure when the countries got their names or anything like that, but they had Jamaica, they had Cuba, the coast of Florida was there. I think the Florida Keys might have been in it a little bit. In certain missions, you go up to the Carolinas because of Blackbeard. In one of the missions, you go to Africa. It's really cool, but it is a big map, and of course, it's not showing everything. It's showing open water for the most part in islands, but there's so many islands that you can explore, and it's such a huge map. It's insane, and playing as someone that is not initially an assassin, but then goes with the assassins because he messes up so bad, is interesting, because it's not really seen in any of the games. A lot of the games show, besides Assassin's Creed, the original, you don't start off as an assassin leading up to this. In Assassin's Creed 2, you become an assassin after your father and brothers are murdered. In 3, you don't become an assassin until you go after them because of the Templar activities that are going on in your tribe, because you are part Native American, you still live in your tribe. The tribe leader tells you to go out and find where this symbol is, and it's the assassin symbol. In 4, you're just a pirate that puts on an assassin hood and gauntlets and then goes out and just fucks everything up. I mean, and you don't become an assassin literally until the end, almost the end of the game. And it's insane. I mean, not until Syndicate do you have have a game where you start off as an assassin. Even in Unity, you don't start off as an assassin. You find out that your father was an assassin. You break out of jail with an assassin, and then you try to visit him, and you become an assassin. Then it's not instant. It's only like, if you count Brotherhood and Revelations, it's about 1, 2, 3, 4. games where you're an assassin initially. You don't have to be initiated or anything. But I mean, it is cool to see that outside perspective of this guy's not an assassin, he's just wearing it, but then he becomes one and becomes, one of the leaders of the assassins in England, as you would find out in Syndicate, which is a good transition. If you also notice a trend, all of the games leading up to Odyssey came out in October, almost around the same time. October 30th, 2015 was when Syndicate came out. 1 year after Unity. I didn't really enjoy Unity as much, mainly because the bad feedback that it got and just the brokenness of the game. When I picked it up, the patches were already out. There was no game-breaking glitches except for when you accidentally take on too many side quests at once, and it basically breaks your game and you can't do anything besides those side quests. And they don't even pass. That was a big game-breaking glitch that I just said, you know what? I'm not playing it no more. I uninstalled it. I deleted the data. I sold that. But Syndicate, when I originally played it, I didn't even play past some of the first mission. I think that the only thing I didn't even play Sequence 1. I played the first mission and then never picked it up until 4 years later. That's how bad it was. And just thinking about it, it was actually 2 years later that I picked up Black Flag, not 6. Or not 4. I think I said it was in 2016. It was in 2018 that I last played Black Flag. Because it was the summer of 2018. Didn't play it for 2 years and then finished it. But Syndicate, it was 4 years. And when I picked it back up, I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a second chance. And I don't understand why I didn't play it the first time. It was interesting. You play as twins, Jacob and Evie Fry. The first Assassin's Creed game where you could play as a woman assassin. Now, I mean, it was very limited, sort of, to what she could do. There were missions where she could take the lead in, and just like Evie-centered missions. And there's Jacob-centered missions, but there are side quests that you can do that's not really tailored for either one of them. But most people probably tended to play as Jacob just because he was kind of presented as more interesting because he wanted to be in a gang. He wanted to start a gang. And that's the whole premise when they first marketed it. It was just Jacob. There was no Evie. They didn't do anything. I think they originally wanted the game to be just Evie, but I think the studio said that they had to make it not just a female because they didn't think that it would sell. That's why you don't have any female-centered Assassin's Creed games until Odyssey and Valhalla, where you can choose the gender of, I think it's Alexandra or Alexios in Odyssey, depending on male or female, and then in Valhalla they're both named Eivor. It doesn't matter what gender they are, it's just both Eivor. But Syndicate's really cool because, you do have the gangs, kind of like in, I think it was Brotherhood, to where you could do like little turf wars and have assassins flank enemies and attack them. But in this, you have a gang that is just everyone on the streets, and you can just, press, I think it's like R1 on the PS4, equivalent to Xbox. I don't know what it is, probably RT. And it just, they join you, and you can send them to attack people, or if you get attacked, they start fighting you. It's really interesting, and I'm really interested in see how much further I can go into the game and see if I can actually complete it, because there is a sort of a secret end to it, not an ending, but you play as Jacob's granddaughter, or great granddaughter. I think it's granddaughter, during World War One. And so you get to play as an assassin, almost a modern day assassin in World War One. The only time that you really get to play as an assassin in a more modern time is in Assassin's Creed Chronicles Russia, which was not a main series game. It's a side scroller game that was just produced, that wasn't really as much. It was Assassin's Creed China, India, and Russia. But Russia took place during the Russian Revolution in the beginning of the 1900s. So, besides that, this is the most modern Assassin's Creed, not game, but like moment, besides the Desmond stuff. And even then, you don't really do much as Desmond, really, until Assassin's Creed 3, where you sneak in and try to save your father from the Templars and you start assassinating people. But Syndicate was really fun for up until what I've played, and I really want to play more. And another game that was really fun was the game that followed, which was Origins. You play as Bayek. You are a Magi from, oh, I don't remember where from. But the game is set in Egypt. I wish I could remember where it was, where he's from technically. But it's in Egypt, ancient Egypt. It's during the Roman. I don't want to say invasion, but when the Romans occupied Egypt and try to make it more like Alexandrian and Roman and stuff, with the Greek Roman influence on like bigger cities, especially with Alexandria being in Egypt, or one of the Alexandrias that Alexander the Great added, because he was a power hungry guy that conquered a lot of land and then just named everything after himself, and then died to poison, but well, alcohol poisoning technically. But the landscape is amazing, and the way that they mention like different gods that you can take on, and not even just DLCs. There are DLCs where you take on pharaohs, but in the game there are like trials of the gods, to where you go and visit just like a isolated place in the desert, where you would go on and take on these trials, and you fight different Egyptian gods, and they're huge, and it takes a good long while to kill them, and they have like different powers that they can do, and they summon their own minions, but really you have to like attack them with arrows. But what's really cool is the way they explain it is that they say that it's a glitch in the animus. So it's not just like, hey, these things, it's not just saying these gods are real and they exist. They're saying, oh, this is a glitch, which is really cool. But then in Odyssey, they say, the gods are actually Isu, which is the higher beings that created humans in the Assassin's Creed world. But that goes into more lore. But Origins was really, really well done. I love the landscape of it. And it was the first game to introduce the Discovery Tours, which is it has happened in Origins, Odyssey, and it will happen to Valhalla, which is basically just like you get to explore Egypt, you get to explore Greece, you get to explore 9th century England and stuff like that. And it's really cool. I haven't started it yet, but I've seen different things about it, and it's basically just a history lesson almost, which intrigues me just because I'm a history major. But this game is important because, as it says in its title, this introduces the Assassin's Brotherhood. The early version is they're called the Hidden Ones. And Valhalla pretty much is a direct sequel to this, just because the Hidden Ones are in Valhalla. They're not in Odyssey. Odyssey had nothing to do with assassins. You didn't even have the Hidden Blade. Odyssey was just a precursor to Origins, saying, hey, this is where the I think, oh, I can't remember the names, but they're the precursors to the Templars. They're what the Templars would become in Greece, that moved into Egypt and then moved into England and stuff before they were the Templars. All these games take place before the original Assassin's Creed game. But, this is the game that gives you the Hidden Blade. It explains why you have to lose your ring finger. It explains, the origin of the Brotherhood and who started it. And even explains one of the ancient assassins that is mentioned in, I believe it was in one of the Ezio games, to where there's a giant hall of like assassin statues that describes each assassin through history. and one of them is an Egyptian woman that was an assassin who killed Cleopatra. That woman is Aya, who was Bayek's wife in Origins. Spoiler if you didn't play that game. Sorry. 3 spoilers so far. But, it explains how she was introduced, into the Assassins. It explains why she took on a different name. Because she doesn't have the same name in the other games as she does in this. It tells you that she took on a different identity at the end of the game. She is involved with Cleopatra and Julius Caesar and all this different kind of stuff. And it's really interesting how they tie in like little plot holes and loops they introduced in older games and brought them into this one to kind of tell you, hey, this is how it started. And then this will end with the general hype of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, because looking at the trailers, even though you don't start off as an assassin, you don't know what the assassins are, even though they're not called the assassins, you don't get anything like until probably the first beginning of the game, like into it. I haven't played it yet. I have it. I own it. Just bought it. Haven't been able to play it yet. But it looks very brutal just because you're a Viking. And it's insane. You get to behead people. You get to disarm people. It reminds me of Ghost of Tsushima when I bought it back in July or June. It was delayed, so I don't remember which one it was. But it was, that game was really fun, and it was brutal, but realistically brutal in voice crack. And just with Valhalla being set in, Viking era, you get to visit 9th century England. You even get to go to the New World. So that's really cool. And then it's DLC, like the season pass stuff, is the Siege of Paris, which really happened. So that's really cool. I don't know if I'll get it. We'll see. But, it's really interesting. And I can't wait to play it and actually get to sit down and be immersed into this story, because not only that, you get to choose not only your gender of assassin you want to play as. This has the most customizable features out of any Assassin's Creed game. You get to pick not only your gender, but how like you look, your different hairstyles. If you're a male, you get to choose different beards. There's different clothing options as per almost every Assassin's Creed game. But there's also like the options to get tattoos and stuff for your Viking, because that was a big part of their culture, and it's just like all these runic tattoos. And a major part of it is building up your homestead. That's a big part of it too, because in the Viking era, your home was a big part of your life. You all were one group of people that you had to care for. And so you get to build upon that, and you can get different buildings and different... That would pretty much probably give you different upgrades and stuff to help you out along the journey. It'll be really interesting to see how that goes. And I'm really interested to play it. I know it's been me pretty much just talking and ranting, but I mean, how do you think it looks?
Oh, Valhalla?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, and you might actually hate me for this, or whatever.
No judgment. Chance might hate you.
Chance has ruined Vikings for me very much. And no, I'm kidding, of course.
Well, an explanation for it is Chance is very much into like Vikings and Norse mythology. He was really big into God of War when it came out back in the day. That's what really excites me about this game, because I was really loving God of War PS4, which was all about like Norse mythology. This one really hypes me up just because, as I was going to say, and we're going to continue talking like you were going to say a few things. All the newer Assassin's Creed games go into mythology. This goes into Norse mythology, which is really cool because, there's Fenrir, there's the World Serpent, Jormungandr, there's, the gods, Thor, Odin, they say that you can go to Asgard in this, probably during some kind of like dream state or something. That's really cool because unless you play like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, where it kind of shows Asgard, you don't really get that in a game. Asgard was locked in God of War because they want to save that probably for Ragnarok. Like, it's really cool and interesting, and I'm really excited to see it. But what were you gonna say about Chance and Vikings and about the game?
Yeah, so pretty much Chance's room, Vikings for me. But of course, I was kind of kidding, but kind of not kidding.
Yeah.
It looks good. It looks like one of the best games that they've put out in a while.
It's the best. Like the environments are apparently like the best out of any set. It's a smaller map, but it's like
better
visually. The environment is like the most beautiful Assassin's Creed game yet.
I don't know anything about the gameplay.
Oh, the gameplay?
Not for Valhalla. I'm not.
Okay.
The reason why I say it looks like one of the best ones of here recently is without the gameplay, for me, Odyssey and all that stuff and Origins just didn't seem very pleasing to the eye to me. But at the same time, you're also going farther back in time. So
Odysseys didn't really seem pleasing to me just because they took the RPG level up a notch.
Yeah, and so
with Origins they did it to where you could kind of tell, all right, this is kind of an RPG. You know, there's a skill tree. You have to craft all this stuff. You have to level up before you can go into this area or that area. You know, and like you can see hit points whenever you hit it. But Odyssey, I never played it, and I don't plan on to just because it doesn't look interesting to me. Like, I was a big...
Yeah.
Like, I'm into Greece and Greek mythology, but the story just didn't look interesting to me. Especially with, like, it is a major RPG game just because the movement of the mouths and stuff, like the mocap, was off sync so bad. I watched the introduction with Alexios, the male character in the game. And just the movement of the mouth was... They didn't mocap it. I don't know why they didn't mocap it, but it looked so bad to me. It looked like a PS3... Like Skyrim on the PS3 or something. Not saying Skyrim's bad. Not saying that at all. Just saying, like... Kind of like the movement of the mouth. You can tell that this is not a cinematically done game. He looks like an NPC. That's a better way to put it. They look like NPCs playing, like when they talk, because it's not a generated, mo-capped, cinematic look. You know what I mean? Like most Assassin's Creed games did. And I never picked it up. I don't think I could ever get into it. And the story, you don't even play as an assassin, and it's an Assassin's Creed game. Like, you predate the Assassin Brotherhood in the game. Like, this is like years before the Assassin's Creed. And it's not interesting to me. But, you know, I just now got some news. It says it was posted 10 hours ago by, it looks like, PC Games. I guess they're a news outlet for gamers. But Assassin's Creed Valhalla doubles Odyssey's day one play count. The game has been out for 3 days now. Their day one play count. Let's see how much it was. If it's already above Odyssey, what does that tell you?
It says a lot.
I mean, obviously, the game, more people were invested in this game. Let's see here. You can tell this is raw. Like, this is probably one of the most natural podcasts we've made in a while. I'm trying to see if it actually had any numbers. It does not. That's unfortunate. I was really hoping it would have an exact number. But it says, just 2 days after launch, Ubisoft already has a reason to call Assassin's Creed Valhalla a record breaker. Eivor's Viking Saga has already doubled Assassin's Creed Odyssey's day one player count, according to a new press release. That's really good. You know, that should give Ubisoft hope that this game series hasn't died yet. You know, especially when you see that they took another break. They took a year break between Odyssey, which came out in 2018, and now Valhalla, which came out in 2020, the year of the end. But they took a whole year off for this game, which is really good. It shows how you don't need to throw out a game every year like Call of Duty, or like they were doing, which so it leads to more of a polished game than a broken game. That's why you see these big titles like God of War and Spider-Man, or Marvel Spider-Man, even Halo. They don't put a game out every year. Gears of War is another one, because they took a long time for this, for Gears 5. These games don't have to be every year. People are going to play them. They're going to want to play them. Give them a polished game that they will play, that they will love, and they'll come back. 2 years after Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales came out. Even though it's not a direct sequel, it's more of a spin-off sequel, and it's a smaller game, it's still popular. People are still going to love it. I saw Jacksepticeye's video, like the first 30 or 40 minutes of it, and it looked really good. The gameplay looks really good. They changed everything about the swing physics for Miles because he's so new to the Spider-Man scene. God of War came out in 2018. It's already been 2 years. It'll probably be 2021, 2022. I think 2021 is when they said, when Ragnarok comes out. And even that's going to be a big game, especially being a PlayStation exclusive.
Absolutely.
Games like that, to where you don't have to put them out every year. Another game, Red Dead. It took how many years for Red Dead 2 to come out?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if it's true or not.
What, 8 years?
Well, the thing is I don't know exactly how true the statement was that was made, that they started working as soon as Red Dead 1 was released. But if that is true, 8 years, yes.
I believe it, just because...
I mean, it's too detailed.
When you say, did they have, like, they were probably working on the story at that point, what they wanted the story to be about. But probably not like the actors yet. They probably waited a couple years for the actors.
I'm sure at the point of them, in the first year or two of them working on Red Dead Redemption 2, they were really they were figuring out the story. Okay, let's go. Are we going to do a sequel, or are we going to do a prequel? Let's do a prequel. Okay, are we going to talk about the whole gang? Okay, we need to figure out who's in the gang, because we got John and we got Dutch, and Micah's not even mentioned, but he's kind of mentioned.
Well, it's like in the original game there was John, Dutch, Uncle, Hosea, not Hosea, but Javier and Bill. Those were the only characters that you knew from the original gang.
Yeah,
they're not. No one else is ever mentioned.
Yeah, but I'm sure at that point they were like, okay, let's make some new characters.
Flesh this out. Who's gonna be the main protagonist? Who's going to be the antagonist? Stuff like that.
Exactly, and stuff like that.
Where's the game going to be set?
Yeah.
Like, how many years is it? Like, what is the time period? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I go into Assassin's...
And funding, probably.
Yeah, and go into Assassin's Creed, I mean, the fact that they were able to throw this game out not very long after the last game, it's
2 years.
2 years. They took 2 years to do this one.
Well, they took a year off, but it's been 2 years since the release.
I really feel they need to start doing them every 2 years. I think once we do that, we are on a good approach to another game.
Unless they have different studios working on different games, because they do have different studios. Like, I think Syndicate was made by the same studio that did Black Flag. So it's like they have like their like Montreal studios doing certain games, and like their regular studios doing certain games.
It's like one of those things where you're like, okay, let's look at how some of the other games where they come out year after year after year, right? Some of them were kind of rushed. I mean, Unity had some problems when it first came out.
Well, Unity and Origins, I'm sorry. Unity and Syndicate had a lot of game-breaking
they had
glitches.
Problems. Now, here's my thing. Now, let's take, for example, this one. It took 2 years to kind of make it. They took a break and they made this one, right? What do you think they could do with Call of Duty taking another year off? They could do so much.
Well, my thing is, the only problem with Call of Duty, and I want to go into this because I do want to talk about Call of Duty and probably the problem with Call of Duty. Even though it's under one name, they all have Call of Duty, but it's not like the same game. It's different people working on it. You had Activision working on some Call of Duty games, I think they did the original Black Ops games. You have Raven Studios working on certain games. You have Infinity Ward. I think they worked on the Modern Warfare games. That's the thing. If you have different studios working on your games, that's different. You know what I mean? Therefore, you're not having just one studio work on this game and this game and this game at the same time. You have different studios that are partnering with you to make different series in the same overarching collective, but putting them out year after year. That's why you don't see, like, in a Modern Warfare with a Black Ops in the same year. That, like, I feel like have they not taken a year off?
Call of Duty? I can't recall what time they did take a year off. Unless it was early, you know, we're talking the original Call of Duty 2, stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I don't even think that.
Black Ops came out in 2010.
Yes.
And I'm not going to dive much more into this because it goes into a different thing.
We should wrap it up too. Yeah. You know?
Black Ops came out in 2010.
Yes.
Did Modern Warfare 3 come out in 2011, right?
Yes.
And then Ghost came out in like 13?
Yes.
So what came out in 12?
Black Ops 2.
Black Ops 2. So yeah, they never did take it because after that,
they
14
never took a
was
year.
Like
what?
Infinite.
14?
No, Advanced Warfare.
Advanced Warfare was 14.
Then Infinite Warfare.
15 was Black Ops 3. 16 was...
That was Infinite Warfare. And then it was Black Ops 4.
Yes. I was like, am I right here?
And 2018.
2018 was World War II.
World War II. And then you had Modern Warfare, the new one. The remake.
Not the remake.
And then you have Black Ops Cold War.
Yes. So
this
yeah,
is
they've
why
never
I want to
taken...
talk about. This is why I want to talk about Call of Duty because there's so many games to talk about.
Yeah,
but
they've really never taken a break.
And that's a problem.
But if they could,
because it's the same game every year,
or if and they could be. I'm not saying, you know, obviously I'm not making a video game. Yeah. I don't want to make a video game, but I mean the question is
Treyarch.
While
Sorry,
they
that's
are,
who it was that made the Black Ops games.
Yeah, while they are doing the other game, is the Call of Duty like franchise working with the other companies to make the next one? Or are they waiting until the last minute to do it? Like, the moment they announce the next one, then they start working on it? Or are they already working on it? Do they get to take 2-3 years to work on it? Or do they not? It's one of those things. Do they just take the base game of Call of Duty, the same formula, throw in different themes, and then put it out? You know, you never know. I'm not talking bad about Call of Duty. They have good games. Black Ops 3 was really good. Infinite Warfare, for the most part, was really good. World War II was pretty freaking good. Modern Warfare was good. The ones from the past were good. Black Ops, Modern Warfare 3, Modern Warfare 2. I mean, all of them. But the thing is that if we took a little more time on it, we could have stellar games.
Well, I definitely think that I'm going to leave that thought there.
For another time.
Well, I think not the next episode, but the episode after, I feel like that is the perfect time to talk about Call of Duty.
Sounds good.
You know, especially after Veterans Day was yesterday, at the time of recording. So this will probably tell you how advanced, like, forward we go after we record. But that'll be an episode for 2 weeks from, not 2 weeks, but 2 episodes from this episode. But let's talk about what we want to talk about next episode.
So next episode we do, I would really like to just kind of, it's one of those things I kind of just want to goof off and have some fun with until we get to some of the stuff we want to do in December. And so what I really want to do is, if you've ever seen the YouTube channel Unis Honest, or if you've seen other YouTube channels, they have this little simulator online where you can make your own Hunger Games. And I'd like to just make our own Hunger Games of a certain theme. I don't know what we're going to do quite yet, but I'd like to do a themed Hunger Games and kind of just go through it and just have a ball with it.
It'd be really fun.
That's something I would think would be a lot of fun. So that's what I want to do next episode, just to have some more light stuff for November, so then December we can hit some really epic stuff that we're hoping to do.
Yeah.
And be on schedule and hoping it's great. And have some guests.
Possibly by December. We talked about this on episode 6 of our wrestling podcast. Hopefully we might go into physical podcast by either the end of the year this year in December, or go into 2021 having physical podcast. So hopefully we can get that done, and hopefully we don't take 2 to 3 weeks for newer episodes to come out like this one. hopefully we're going to get back on the basis to where it's at least one every week, if not more. But we'll see. But I think it'll do it for that episode. This was not as long. Well, it probably is longer now, but
it's not that long. No, I think we're doing pretty good.
Just a small little episode I thought about doing today. For the release of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Remember that we are not sponsored. This is not a sponsored episode.
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure.
It's just the love of the game.
Yeah. I just want to make sure because I did kind of talk about Valhalla, like the details about it. It's not sponsored at all. I'm very hyped for this game. If Chance was on here, he'd be talking our ears off for 2 or more hours. So with that, make sure that you hit that like button. If you like what we do here, hit subscribe and ring the notification bell for whenever we do post podcast episodes, hopefully more. Share, with people that you like, and if you don't like this, share it with people that you hate, and hopefully, maybe they like it, or maybe they hate it and they just send it to somebody they hate. Just get the word around. But you can follow the podcast on Instagram at @LEDo_podcast, and you can also follow our wrestling podcast on Instagram at @LEDo_wrestling_podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at @LEDobrand, and you can also follow our wrestling podcast editor Ethan at EthanThompson _ on Instagram.
You can follow me on Instagram at ClintonWells2001. You can also find our music engineer Chance at chance.cummings.507 on Instagram.
And we hope you enjoy.
Thanks.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!